Hello and welcome. Let's learn how to calculate the interquartile range of data. First, why? Well, we can measure how spread out quantitative data is with one number. This is also known as measuring the data's variability. Suppose we have two sets of grades. We might say the top set is less spread out than the bottom set because we're only going from like 60 to 100 versus 0 to 100. And we can actually measure how spread out the data is with the interquartile range, also known as the IQR. In this case, the number agrees with our suspicions. 20 is indeed less than 50, so that confirms that the top set is less spread out than the bottom set. But let's go into greater depth about how to find this number, the IQR or the interquartile range. The IQR is a measure of how spread out the middle half of the data is. And to find the middle half, we're going to have to find the middle of the data. First, we find the median of the data, and we're going to call this Q2. Then we find the middle of the first half. Because it's going to be the end of the first quarter, we're going to call that Q1. And then we find the middle of the second half, which is going to correspond with the middle of the third quarter of the data, so we're going to call that Q3. Last but not least, to find out how far apart the Q3 and Q1 are, we subtract Q1 from Q3. Here we have a data table with the points scored by two players in basketball games. If I write player A's data in order, I can find the median, which is 18, and then I look to the left and right and I try to find the middle of the first half of the data and the middle of the second half of the data. Because the middle of the first half is split between two numbers, I need to find the average of those two numbers by adding them and dividing by 2. In this case, I'll get 10. And because the second half is split between two numbers, but those numbers are the same, I can just go ahead and say that Q3 is 21. Last but not least, I need to figure out how far away Q3 and Q1 are by subtracting, and I get 11. Player B's data, if we write it in order, we see that the middle falls between 13 and 15. Because we're not really interested in what that value is, we can sort of glance over finding it. All we really care about is finding the middle of the first half of the data and the middle of the second half of the data. Here, it's going to fall nicely on 11, and Q3 is going to fall nicely on 18. We find out how far away 18 and 11 are, which in this case, we get 7. With these two measures of variability, we can compare player A and player B. What conclusions can we make about them? Well, because there is less variability in player B's data, that might be an indicator that they are more consistent and score about the same number of points each game. Hope this video is helpful and that you visit us again.